to the Ineos Grenadier how-to video series, where we'll give you all the information to guide you through using the features on the Grenadier so that you can make the most of it when you get behind the wheel. Take a look below for the chapters to suit your needs. Separating out the specialist controls from your daily controls, the Grenadier has the overhead control panel. Located on the roof between the driver and the front passenger, the controls can easily be toggled by both users, allowing the driver to keep their hands on the wheel and focus on the terrain or road ahead. The overhead control panel includes the following features: interior lights, ESC off, downhill assist, headlamp levelling, auxiliary high beam, e-cool, differential locks if you spec them, off-road mode, wading mode, auxiliary switch panel and the high-load auxiliary switch panel. The optional high-load auxiliary switch panel electrical preparation gives another bank of 4 switches in the overhead control panel and has wiring outlets throughout the vehicle. The 4 outlets in the roof rails allow for plug-and-play connectivity with additional equipment like the accessory LED light bar. Simply mount the LED light bar, run the cable to the outlet and plug in. The Grenadier is fitted with an 8-speed automatic gearbox from ZF, shifted via the gear selector. You can also put the gearbox into manual mode on the fly for those times you need extra control by pushing the gear selector to the left of the vehicle. You then have the ability to shift up by pulling the gear selector backwards and then shift down by pushing the gear selector forwards. Coupled to the automatic transmission is the 2-speed transfer case. It is mechanically controlled by the transfer case selector, which sits next to the automatic transmission gear selector. In everyday on-road driving, you should be running in high range. Always check that the transfer case selector is high unlocked before driving on-road or on high traction surfaces. When heading off-road, you may need extra torque and slower speeds and therefore want to shift into low range. Stop the Grenadier, put the automatic gearbox in neutral and lift the collar on the transfer case selector and shift from high to low. As you do this, an L will light up on the telltale cluster behind the steering wheel. Putting it into context, you're off-roading and approach a steep decline. You need to stop, put the Grenadier in low range if it isn't already, and use manual mode to select first gear. This will allow you to make full use of the vehicle's engine braking and keep the vehicle under control. When manual mode is no longer necessary, push the gear selector to the right when sitting in the driver's seat, and it will return to standard automatic operation. And then, when you no longer need to be in low range, stop the Grenadier, put the automatic gearbox in neutral, lift the collar on the transfer case selector and shift from low to high. As you do this, the L in the telltale cluster will switch off. As the Grenadier is a permanent four-wheel drive vehicle, there is a differential built into the transfer case. As standard, every Grenadier has the ability to lock the centre diff, and this is done via the mechanical transfer case selector. The centre diff lock must not be used on high traction surfaces. The centre differential can be locked in both high range and low range. To lock the centre diff, stop the Grenadier, put the automatic gearbox in neutral, lift the collar on the transfer case selector and shift across from unlocked to locked. As you do this, an icon will light up in the telltale cluster behind the steering wheel. To unlock the centre diff, stop the Grenadier, put the automatic gearbox in neutral, lift the collar on the transfer case selector and shift back across from locked to unlocked. As you do this, the icon in the telltale cluster will switch off. In some cases, shifting from high to low and vice versa might be difficult. If this is the case, don't force the transfer case to shift. Allow the Grenadier to roll forward a few centimetres, as this allows the internal mechanisms to align and makes shifting easier. Engaging and disengaging the centre diff lock may also require movement of the vehicle. If your Grenadier is fitted with the optional axle differential locks, there will be 2 additional switches in the overhead control panel. Before pressing any buttons, make sure the engine is on, the speed is below 9 miles per hour, accelerator input is below 40%, the wheels are not spinning, and ESC is not actively intervening at that point in time. To operate the rear differential lock, you must have the transfer case in low range with the centre differential locked. Then press and hold the rear differential lock button for 1 second. When the rear diff lock is active, an icon will light up behind the steering wheel in the telltale cluster, and the LED in the rear diff lock button will light up. If the vehicle is stationary when you press the rear diff lock button, the LED on the button will start to flash. As you start to move the vehicle, the differential lock icon in the telltale cluster will light up. If the differential lock icon on the telltale cluster lights up orange, this means the lock is engaged. If the icon is flashing orange, this means the differential lock is engaging. If there's an error, the icon will light up red. To operate the front differential lock, make sure the engine is on, the speed is below 9 miles per hour, accelerator input is below 40%, the wheels are not spinning and ESC is not actively intervening at that point in time. With that met, you must also ensure the transfer case is in low range with the centre differential locked, and the rear differential must also be locked. Then press and hold the front differential lock button for 1 second. When the front diff lock is active, an icon will light up in the telltale cluster behind the steering wheel, and the LED in the front diff lock button will light up. When the axle differentials are locked, electronic stability control and anti-lock braking system are automatically disabled. The ability to steer the vehicle is also severely affected when the diff locks are active, especially with the front lock engaged. To unlock the front or rear differential, press the required diff lock button in the overhead control panel. If you disengage the rear diff lock before the front diff lock, then both the front and rear diff locks will disengage. Likewise, if you disengage the centre differential lock before you disengage either the rear or front diff locks, then all three differential locks will be disengaged. To turn on off-road mode, the vehicle must be stationary with the engine running and the handbrake on. Press the off-road button in the overhead control panel for 1 second, release, and then press again within 15 seconds to confirm activation. There'll be a sound to confirm activation has been completed. When off-road mode is active, two icons will light up in the telltale cluster behind the steering wheel, one showing off-road mode and the second showing ESC off. The central touchscreen will also show a message confirming off-road mode is active, and the LED in the off-road mode button will also light up. When off-road mode is on, the electronic stability control switches to ESC off-road and ESC functions are reduced. Other features are also deactivated when in off-road mode, including engine start-stop, parking sensors, door ajar alerts and seatbelt reminders. This mode cuts through all the typical distractions and warnings coming from a vehicle and lets the driver focus on the terrain ahead. To turn off-road mode off, hold the off-road button for 1 second and then release it. The LED in the button and the two icons on the telltale cluster will then switch off. The changes to ESC and all other systems will then return to normal. Off-road mode will also automatically switch off if the Grenadier travels faster than 44 miles per hour or if the engine is turned off for longer than 30 seconds. To turn on wading mode, the vehicle must be stationary with the engine running, the handbrake on, and the transfer case should be in low with the centre differential locked. Then press the wading button in the overhead control panel for 1 second, release, and press again within 15 seconds to confirm activation. There'll be a sound to confirm activation has been completed. When wading mode is active, two icons will light up in the telltale cluster behind the steering wheel, one showing off-road mode and the other showing ESC off, and the LED in the wading mode button will also light up. When wading mode is on, the electronic stability control switches to ESC off-road and ESC functions are reduced. An 18 mph speed limiter is also switched on to help the driver create the best bow wave and minimise water entering the engine bay. Other features are also deactivated when in wading mode, including DPF and GPF regeneration, side engine fans, seat heating, if applicable, engine start-stop, parking sensors, driver door ajar alerts, seatbelt reminders, and SCR heating. This mode aids the driver and protects the Grenadier when wading through water. To turn wading mode off, hold the wading button for 1 second and release it. The LED in the button and the two icons in the telltale cluster will then switch off. You can also turn off wading mode by unlocking the centre differential, shifting from low range to high, or by turning off off-road mode. Downhill assist helps the driver by controlling the speed of the Grenadier when going downhill. The system applies the brakes to individual wheels, keeping the vehicle stable. To turn on, press the downhill button located in the overhead control panel. The vehicle must be travelling forward slower than 15 miles per hour or reversing slower than 6 miles per hour. Downhill assist cannot be activated if the axle differentials are locked or if ESC has been switched off. When active, the infotainment screen will display the downhill assist symbol in green. The same symbol will flash when downhill assist is in control. You can set the speed of downhill assist using the plus and minus buttons on the steering wheel. Press the downhill button once to switch off downhill assist. It will also automatically switch off if the driver accelerates past 15 miles per hour or 6 miles per hour in reverse, if ESC off is pressed or the axle differential locks are engaged. The Grenadier as standard is fitted with additional lights. These LED auxiliary high beam lights are located in the front grille and are designed for off-road use and should not be used on-road. To operate them, switch on the ignition and press the auxiliary light button in the overhead control panel. The LED in the button will light up to show the system is active. Then, when the driver uses the main beam, the auxiliary lights will now also turn on. In some regions, you must also be in off-road mode to activate them. The rear bench seat in 5-seat vehicles is split into a 60-40 divide and can be folded down to increase the size of your load space. For those who have children, you'll also find ISOFIX mounting points on the outboard seats on the rear bench. To fold the seats down, first remove the headrest and fold the bottom cushion of the bench seat towards the front of the vehicle. Then pull the loop at the top of the outboard seats by the C-pillar. The seat mechanism will unlock and allow you to fold the backrest forward to collapse the seat. You may have noticed when moving the bottom cushion of the bench seat in 5-seat vehicles that you gain access to the main vehicle battery on the left side of the vehicle and on the right side either the under-seat drive storage or the auxiliary battery if optioned. If you do option the auxiliary battery, the storage area is replaced by the battery. It's important to frequently check the tyres on the Grenadier, including the spare wheel. Checks should be carried out at least once a week if used on normal roads, before and after long journeys, and before and after every off-road use. The tyre pressure monitoring system, or TPMS, is standard in every vehicle and gives individual tyre pressures and temperatures. The system gives a warning if tyre pressure is too low, and an icon will light up in the telltale cluster behind the steering wheel. If a tyre is damaged, there is a full-size spare wheel on the 70 door of the Grenadier. To remove the spare wheel, you have to remove the spare wheel cover or optional spare wheel lockable storage box. Then undo the 3 wheel nuts holding the spare wheel in place. Before jacking the vehicle up, remove as much load from the vehicle as possible, including passengers, equipment and a trailer if towing. Chock the wheels and put the vehicle in park to help make sure there is no unexpected movement. The vehicle jack is located behind a panel in the load space storage compartment, and there's a toolkit located underneath the driver's seat. The Grenadier is built to tow up to 3.5 tonnes and support 350 kilograms of trailer nose weight. We've developed the vertical towing interface as a 3-in-1 hitch mounting system that can take a variety of tow balls and towing devices. The largest 2 holes at the bottom of the vertical towing interface are for your common European style tow balls. The upper 4 are for NATO and Pintle connectors. And at the centre, there's a 2-inch receiver for American and rest of world hitches. This centre 2-inch receiver is also designed to take the accessory winch. To increase the capability and flexibility of the Grenadier, we've designed plenty of options to attach your kit onto. Running on the sides of the Grenadier across both doors and under the 3rd row window, we have the exterior utility belt option. This system should only be used when off-road. This system originated in the airline industry and over time has made its way onto utility vehicles. It comes with 4 quick-release tie-down rings which are used for hanging kit off when you're parked up at camp. Moving inside, we also have the interior utility rail option. It's exactly the same system as the exterior utility belt, and it too comes with 4 quick-release tie-down rings. We also have accessories like the cargo management system that fits into these rails. To use the quick-release tie-down rings, simply rotate the ring so the point faces the clip. Push the release button in and slide the clip sideways. This allows you to move the tie-down ring along the belt as well as remove it.